Hello, and welcome to VLab, UBM Studio's virtual environment, which holds a wealth of content on best practices in virtual environments. We're so glad you could make it. Today we're launching the Interactive Event Companion, where focus is placed on moving high-value content to motivated audiences in real time and placing sponsors in the middle of that information exchange. It's a pretty powerful statement, and we're really excited to tell you how we are doing it. But first, I want to introduce David Blaza, VP of UBM Electronics, who's joining me today to talk about his experience with this solution. Welcome, David.
Good morning, Kathleen. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about the evolution of interactive business environments and the market conditions that are creating an opportunity for all of you to leverage this interactive event companion. We'll talk about the key features and benefits that the solution offers. We'll share a few great case studies from working with David and UBM Electronics and UBM channels. We'll highlight the sponsorship opportunities, the reporting you can expect, the process for getting started, and what kinds of resources are needed on your end. And lastly, we're going to take a sneak peek into the future applications that leveraging mobile devices offers. So it's a lot to cover in an hour, so we'll move this along. But know that if we don't get to your question on this webcast, your UBM Studios team is very eager to discuss your situation and how this solution might be applied in your group. We're also going to be doing some polling throughout the webcast, some of it kind of fun. So hopefully we have a strong live group here. I know it's a crazy week leading up to the holidays. But of course, this session will be on demand in VLab, so feel free to send this on to your colleagues here at UBM if they may have missed it. And make sure you enter your questions in the space provided. So we'll either address them here in the broadcast live, or we'll be sure to follow up with you and address them as well. All right, so let's get to it. So many of you may have seen this slide before. It's a perfect illustration of what's happening in the virtual environment space. Sort of that evolution from singular standing webcasts, of which there are more than anybody can watch probably. Certainly most of you are familiar with virtual trade shows, including many that we do here at UBM, award-winning events like Comdex and Sustainability Now and more that I could mention, to the evolution to interactive business environments that are focused on building communities and engagement that solve companies' business. Some examples of those shown here, like Cisco's hybrid virtual partner conference, or DuPont's roadshow conferences for customers, or the career fair, as you can see here. Many examples of leveraging virtual environments to solve a business problem. So what's next? What's next is immersive digital environments that really allow connections to be made pre, during, and post-event, driven by relevant content that allows you to build communities. And before we dig into what that means, we want to first do a quick little poll here. Kind of tongue-in-cheek. But as you can see here, what we're asking is, are you looking for ways to increase attendee engagement before, during, and after your physical event? You've got 3 responses, and I'll give you a minute to check that out. Nobody took a risk and answered the second and the third question, or the second and third answer, right, David? Right. Of course, you want to reach them as frequently as possible, and that's not surprising. In fact, we saw that actually. There's the answer there. We saw the same thing in some research that we recently did with the Virtual Edge Institute and PCMA, which are 2 groups that are for physical and virtual event planners. And we asked them how important it is to be engaging with their attendees pre, during, and post-event. And as you can see here, the results are pretty clear. Most responded that it's important or very important at all 3 stages. But what we also know is that the attendees' attention, I guess, or motivation is fleeting, and that it's really critical that we stay engaged with them at every touch point to really hold their attention. And that's what we're really trying to solve here. Let's look at our next slide here. So the shift has really gone from our controlling the content that our attendees can get to a more user-controlled consumption model. It's sort of the Google effect. And they want to be able to get information when they want it on whatever device they happen to be using and when their interest is hot. And certainly from a sponsor standpoint, the focus is moving, and we've seen a couple of examples of this, towards a more consistent engagement with attendees and building an ongoing relationship as opposed to a singular lead list that will happen after an event and may be cold at that point, which this data really shows from a sponsor standpoint. But the reality is that, and this is from that research that we did with VEI and PCMA, many people, their concern with the virtual event space has been about distractions happening in the virtual world. But this data is interesting because it shows that distraction happens whether you're a physical attendee or a virtual attendee. And it's about the same. And wouldn't it be something if you could harness that attention and really provide relevant content to those attendees over the devices that they're looking at during your event and before your event and after that event. And that's really what this data is speaking to. So we're announcing today the Interactive Event Companion that now leverages the power of mobility to allow those attendees and viewers to access your event content at any time, anywhere, in an easy-to-use, attractive interface. This solution allows you to present content in an evergreen, engaging format, dare I say hip format, or current, and allows you to engage before the event, creating their agenda and meeting planning. During the event, allowing more interaction. And after the event, allowing attendees to dig deeper into that content based on the interest that they have and the content interest that they have. It really helps your attendees, whether physical or virtual, be more efficient with their time and make real connections with others at the events. And it really fully leverages social media tools as well. So here's how it works. The technology itself is digitally collecting, managing, and optimizing your audience reactions, any detectable reactions. And they're given several different ways to react to the content and the event experience. And then what it does is it gives you the ability to visualize those audience reactions and control the content stream that's being delivered to them so that you can serve high-value content based on those reactions to motivated audiences in real time. It also allows you to tie your editorial content stream to the event. And lastly, and this is where the money is, to place the sponsor content right in the middle of that information exchange while that need is alive. So it's pretty powerful stuff. But you don't have to take my word for it. Here are some great quotes from David and from your teammates, David.
Yep.
The electronics group has definitely been an innovator here, and we've been really fortunate to get to work with the electronics group and with UBM channels as well. David, do you want to talk about some of these comments here?
Yeah, whenever you do something brand new like this, it's always everybody knows that we're taking a risk, but the actual platform and the idea was so compelling, we decided to go for it at the ARM TechCon, which is an event we run as a services deal for a British company called ARM, who are if you've got a cell phone, you've got an ARM processor in it, or if you've got a tablet, you've definitely got an ARM processor in it. So we thought it would be the right platform to test this out. So and as you can see from responses from me and my colleagues, and Paul, who's CEO of Electronics Channel and UBM Canon, it was actually a big win for everybody.
Thanks, David. All right, so moving on to what the product actually looks like in terms of the tiers. It basically, from our experience with David and his team and with the channels group, we saw that it really fell into 3 categories here. From a basic show guide, creating a paperless show guide that would work on a mobile device in Tier 1, to Tier 2, adding more networking, adding the topic zones, the searchable topic zones, and allowing for questions to be asked and answered related to specific topic categories, and to Tier 3 that has full content streaming and capturing of reactions in Tier 3. And what we know is that each of the groups within United Business Media will have different situations, will have different requirements, and we look forward to the opportunity to talk about what you've got in place, what your needs are, and where you might fit in, knowing that you might fit somewhere in between 1, 2, or 3, but we're looking forward to talking with you more about that. So first, let's show you, since a picture is worth 1,000 words, the MES example, and we have a quick Camtasia here that will take you through what this environment, this was the Mid-Enterprise Summit that's in the channel group, and what it looked like. So what you can see here is the registrants just have to enter their email address to connect their login to their existing profile, which is happening here. And that will take them to the welcome lobby. There we go, we're submitting here. And here's the lobby with the welcome page that can have images from past events or welcome video to introduce the event. There's a Twitter stream of recent tweets, and the users can follow the host account and gauge the activity. There's the sponsor directory that can be organized by sponsorship level, and the directory allows attendees to access the digital booth for each sponsor to showcase their sales and marketing materials related to the event. There's an easy-to-use self-service building tool, booth building tool, that allows sponsors to configure their own booths, or this is a service, of course, that UBM Studios can provide. Within the booth, the sponsors can add their logo, their descriptions, their contact information, as well as a welcome image. They can include up to 10 categories or topics, each with up to 10 assets apiece. And those can be videos and links and PowerPoints, etc. For the agenda, attendees can view the session details and timelines and titles and abstracts and get information about the speakers, click to view maps of where they're located, and in the more current version, they can also add sessions to their own personal agenda. In the theater, you can feature your on-demand videos. You could also post here again videos, some of your highlighted videos from previous events. And then we've got the user guide providing instructions and tips for using the environment and getting the most out of the event. And then each user has a briefcase where they can view their saved materials at any time from any device so that they can save their favorites and view it when they're back at the office. All right, and next up we have ARMTechCon, which David just spoke a little bit about. So we'll click here to see this Camtasia as well. We had a fully integrated interactive event companion program in this event website. So you can see here we were promoting the tablets and the All Access Pass. and they were able to access those conference sessions that included a free ViewSonic tablet, as we mentioned. Here's the welcome screen that when the user activated, they saw this video that told them how to make the most of this app. And then they could click into the sessions to learn more about the sessions. Users were able to select a track to filter the results, click through to view a description, read about the speakers, and then as the proceedings became available, they could save them into their own briefcase as well. And again, I know this is going quickly. Everybody will be able to access this in the environment for VLab as well as on demand. Okay, that seems to be stuck there. All right. So, David, you talked a little bit about ARM TechCon already. Maybe we can move next to this polling question before we head on to Design West and sort of our Tier 3 example. So a quick poll for the group. What would you like your audience to be doing during your presentation? This is, again, sort of a tongue-in-cheek question, but hopefully makes the point. Do you want them replying an email or checking the scores of games or shopping, or do you want them reviewing your content and engaging them and leveraging the fact that they're looking at their devices to more deeply engage them into the content of your event? All right, so someone's being funny. They want to check the score of the game. And they do, and we all know it. For all of us who've sat in the auditoriums at these presentations, you know that every other person has a device in front of them. So what's nice is that we can hold their attention on those devices with this kind of solution. And here was the breakout. So most of you want to be able to do that. Thank you very much for that. All right, so here's where we get to design. And David, again, I'll hand it off to you to talk a little bit about what your goals were with Design West.
Well, Design West is built from what was the original Embedded Systems Conference, which is a UBM event we've had around. It's been around for 23 years. And it's a very solid event. It's definitely what in UBM parlance we would call a solid citizen. But it wasn't really growing. It had plateaued. And there's an awful lot going on in the world of electronic design, as you all know, in terms of wireless and sensing. There's lots of exciting things going on. So we decided to take it up a notch and make it 7 events in one. So ESC, the Old Embedded Systems Conference, is the heart of the event. But we've added a sensors event. We're working with TechWeb on a Black Hat event. There's an LED event. There's an Android summit, because Android is insanely hot in our market right now. There's a design medical electronics. We're doing some with UBM Canon. There's a medical electronics event. There's a multi-core event. So pulling all this together, we thought we needed a new interface to be able to explain it to the audience that it's not your old and trusted and reliable ESC. It's something new. And based on our experience, which I haven't really talked about in detail yet, at ARM TechCon, I was absolutely blown away by the interactivity that we had with the audience through the app and through the tablets. It was just a tremendous vision into what we could do at our events, and I'm not exaggerating. We all went in with some skepticism that it wasn't going to work, or would the users use it. And I don't know if you're going to talk about the data later, Kathleen, but it was extraordinary. So we decided that we had to...
I'll show the slide with the report as well, but would love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. So we decided it was time to take the concept, make it go big, which this event, Design West, which is the culmination of those 7 events, is next March 26th to 29th in San Jose. We decided, and we were absolutely convinced, that it was a way to bring the event to life, both before, during, and after. So we're very excited about what we can do with UBM Studios.
Thanks, David. And this was interesting because we started with the interactive event companion and building the virtual event app, and it just happened to coincide with the rebranding of your events under this Design West 7 Summits Under One Roof. And so it was the perfect opportunity to redesign the site as well as create the individual interactive events on each of those sites as well in an integrated way. So I'll just show you here some examples by way of screenshots of the process for this. So we included the scheduling functionality as well. And I think we rolled out the site 2 weeks ago and are now moving towards building of each of those interactive events inside each of the sites as well. So here are some pretty pictures of what we've got going there. Here's the bridge. David, do you want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on the bridge?
Yeah, the bridge itself is a really interesting concept because I've been saying for a long time is that every single piece of content leads to another piece of content. Ultimately, you know something now that you didn't know before, but that always begs another question. Okay, so you know that this type of technology will probably work for you. You want to delve into it in more detail. So what's the next piece of content that you need in order for you to go on that that journey, that intellectual journey? And the bridge actually looks at what you're doing and what you're looking at and actually can recommend and put in front of you content that is probably other people like you have seen or other people like you have clicked on. So I think it's a very powerful concept, and I think it's one which would make our live events and what happens afterwards really compelling. So I'm a big believer in seeing how this will work.
What was neat too is that this bridge became kind of the it bridged the sites together, and what you said is spot on. It's about them. It's about the attendees. So this is the information collected from that attendee's viewing of this site and their engagement with the site, and ties back to the way users want to seek information is based on their own needs. So from a user standpoint, this bridge really connects them personally because it is their personal bridge. And then as they're navigating from site to site, their personal bridge is sort of their connection from one to the next. So it really is a powerful piece of this solution. So here are some additional slides that show additional features. Like we talked about in the setting of the auditorium. And this is where when you can capture questions and feedback and reactions, both for the folks that are sitting in the room as well as those who are watching virtually. There's power there. When at your physical event you could be taking questions and behind your speaker on the screen posting questions so that they feel connected. What we know is for some audiences, they're perfectly happy to stand up and ask questions. For some, they won't do that physically, and offering them the opportunity to do that on their mobile device is really powerful and really creates a sense of engagement. And being able to do that not only with the speaker and asking questions, but also with each other and other folks in the room. And then lastly, again, very important for driving sponsorships, being able to connect with other sponsors in the room. If the attendee can throw out questions that could be answered by a sponsor and literally use their device to set a meeting for later that day in the coffee shop or what have you, there's incredible power there. That also talked about, let me go back real quickly, it talked about the ability, which was in that Tier 3 model, to feed relevant content, like with the design site content from EE Times or embedded.com. And I know in channels for the Exchange event sites, being able to connect content as well from CRN to the events is really powerful stuff. Not only because there's a regular stream of content that's current, but also that you can feed relevant content to the attendee because there's plenty of it to draw from and it's existing. So let's hop again to another poll. Would there be value in connecting to your editorial content to your physical event? And we'll give you all a moment to answer. I realize that there are some groups within UBM that don't have a separate editorial content product out there. So we thought that this would be a good way to measure that. In fact, it's looking like for the folks that are on our call, it's primarily those groups that don't have a separate content stream. So it's good to get a sense there as well. But really the value is being able to provide content from both your physical event, from other content that you may have, as well as your sponsor content. So speaking of sponsors, here's just an initial list that we built for sponsorship opportunities. Actually, David, you and I brainstormed these as we were working through what design would look like. And you'll see, from the MES example that we shared from an exhibit floor standpoint, you're able to offer booths, which many of you, if you've been to a virtual trade show, have seen. That's not very different. But what if you could create a virtual store that included educational materials? David, I think that was your idea. That really came from one of the vendors you were speaking to, which is why I call this a partial list, because I think a lot of our sponsors will have their own objectives that may give us additional ideas. But there's some obvious opportunities to get sponsors to your keynote sessions, to that polling process that we talked about, potentially having a trivia game as part of the environment. We talked a little bit about the topic zones, so having sponsors sponsor wireless or embedded chips or name the category. And as your attendee is searching on that topic, having that sponsor's content, their assets served up as well. And it could be serving up the assets. It could also be being able to connect in a Q&A or even setting live meetings or a conference call, as this explains. We showed
and Kathleen, they could even do commerce. I mean, if the sponsor could sell their software in our world, the development kits or a book, I mean, there's lots of other things. If people are actually doing this on their computer later in the app or on a tablet or on their phone, I mean, I think that commerce in these apps is actually something that we should be exploring. I mean, if you've seen a great demo of something at a show, you're thinking, yeah, and it's a work-related expense. You know, you're going to buy it for your company. I actually think, why not buy it within the app? I actually think there's going to be huge potential in that area.
Right. We just open up the opportunity for more commerce to be driven and more revenue to be driven. And what does that is the mobile device and keeping them engaged. So the bridge sponsor, we showed you the bridge. Someone could sponsor that as well. And in the Design West site, you saw that we had breaking news as part of that site. You could have a breaking news sponsor as well. So these are just a few ideas, but we know that this list will get longer and we'll continue to update in VLab as well. So I wanted to show you, David, here is that report from ARMTechCon that talks about, I don't know if you can see it here, but the 335 that signed in, because this was just for those that paid for the all-access pass to receive the tablet and have access to the proceedings. But you can see the multiplier here at almost 21,000 page views for 335 folks is pretty deep. It's pretty impressive. David, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, this was the turning point for me when I saw this data, because I knew it was working. The app had worked very well. The software had worked flawlessly. It was really great. But when I actually got in to look at the reporting data and saw live that people who'd been at the event, people from Intel and Samsung and RIM, the BlackBerry people, were in the app live, downloading papers, looking at papers. It was it just blew me away. We really had achieved longevity for the event. In fact, I went in the week after the event, and I went in 2 weeks after the event, and I know I was driving people crazy here in UBM Electronics, because it was like, well, why are you so excited about it? Because actually I was excited because I'd never seen anything like this before. And the fact that they had access to all that content from the event on demand inside the app was just remarkable. That we'd sort of overachieved. I didn't think it would happen. Most people go to a conference or a seminar, and they get a USB stick, or they download the papers from a box.net site, and then they may or may not go and look at them afterwards. But to see them going in there and getting them live was just remarkable. And you can tell it just blew me away, and it's why we've decided to make a big switch with UBM Studios and really go all in on this technology.
Yeah, and what was interesting about that moment of discovery was that Amy on the event marketing side wasn't surprised, because she is the one who would receive an email requesting proceedings after the event, but they were, sort of one-off emails that would come her way. So she knew that post-event there would be people that were looking for the content. But now this actually gave you visibility into that and provided a wider opportunity for more folks to make that request and buy an all-access pass and want that engagement post-event as well, and that you receive a report that actually shows it and provides the metrics behind it. That was a neat moment. All right, so moving right along. Now that report, it was kind of a flat report because we weren't doing a lot of reaction capturing and feeding relevant content. This is more an example of what Tier 2, Tier 3 engagement would look like, where we're measuring, the thumbs up, the thumbs down, the people who are bored and clicking on the Z's, and all of the questions. And this is what that user interface would look like from a reporting standpoint. The idea here is that, of course, UBM Studios wants to deliver this as a turnkey solution that is scalable, that is customized to what each of you require. And so that is how we deliver these solutions. And we've defined the process here. That we would initially configure the program, we would dedicate the resources, we would identify the team members on each side, because of course we need to make sure that we have a consistent team working together to drive this successfully. And in general, it's about an 8-week launch for this event app. And I'll add a little more time if we are looking to integrate this with the site redesign, which for most, that's what it is coincided with, which of course just adds more cycles to it, but also offers the opportunity for integration. So once you've opened sort of the Pandora's box with mobile in this interactive event companion, there's so many things that you can do at your event with mobile devices. And so we wanted to give you a glimpse into what that future looks like, from registration and check-in to accessing the actual event sessions and doing alerts and call-outs for sessions, and even creating that digital handshake between the sponsors and the attendees. This is really where we're headed. So we have some initial sketches of what that would look like. But this is not, from a technology standpoint, this is not something challenging to create. This really is a logical next step for the attendee and for you as an event host to create these opportunities, either to make purchases, as David said, from a selling a product standpoint, to the fast lane check-in. We all know and have seen, first day of event when the rush comes and the lines are there. Wouldn't it be great for your premium attendees to be able to go through the fast lane with their device, checking them into the exhibit floor? Here you can see. And as we mentioned, allowing your sponsors to be able to scan and collect information and create their handshake on mobile devices as well. It really opens up a lot of opportunities for us. So with that, we will head into questions.